Just so you know, Sam, Justin's an 8 on the Enneagram.
She says that. I don't think there's any proof of that.
Well,
I've never taken a test.
I definitely appreciate that because, yeah, I mean, we're in good company. I'm an 8-7-3.
I don't know what that
Or
means.
maybe I'm
but
a
it sounds
7.
great.
I think I'm an 8.
You're
Maybe
an
I'm
8
7-8-3.
and maybe a 3.
I love that for you.
You're a
3 is like the third one, though, for sure for me.
That's shocking to me. I think you are a full 3. I think 8s are straightforward, speak their mind, like no.
Are they the only ones who are honest? Is there no one else in the lineup that's honest?
Let me say this.
So they're all liars, but 8s.
That's exactly what an 8 would say. But
Here's what I don't like: when you talk about 8s, you got a disdain for them when you describe me, and I'm just like, I don't
have a
like
disdain
that.
for you.
She loves me. And
I do. I am married to an 8.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that's probably why you get a lot of
Is
the
8 the challenger?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm definitely an 8 overall. Yeah, for sure.
So 8s are the challenger.
7, I don't remember.
7s wake up and their whole goal is to have the best day ever.
I've said it before, I've said it again. I hate things like that because you end up, like he's saying, fitting 3 of the categories. It's like, what's the point of being categorized if a third of these apply to me?
Well, the 3 is the achiever. The 3 is the one who can knock stuff out. They are very goal driven. They know where they're headed, know where they're going. Those are 3s. Me as a 7, I like to hang out with a 2. They're helpers. They just want to help you have a good time.
But you married an 8.
But I'm married an 8.
Wow.
I'm married an 8.
Elizabeth's a 6. I married a 6.
The
A little
trait
bit.
I need people I work with to understand about me is like, do not waste time on niceties when we're trying to have a conversation. Just get to the point. And I know that's one of the biggest reasons you categorize me as an 8. And that is true. Like, do not waste our time. Like, I don't need to talk about the weather for 15 minutes before we talk about this project. Like, let's get in and get out. Like, so that's what, if you're listening and you work with me, that's what I need you to understand.
So now we're speaking more into
Meanwhile, you're hosting a podcast.
Well, I mean, we could go all day on this, but we are here.
Oh, is the podcast started?
Yeah, well, I guess. Do we have enough beginning fodder to begin this thing?
Yeah, we can go ahead and get started.
Hello, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast from the City Rise Network. Hosted by Jennifer Dennis and produced by me, Justin Kello, we're a podcast that was supposed to be focused on parenting, but we've kind of lost the plot along the way. Honestly, we don't know what this podcast is about, but we talk to incredible people who love Jesus, and our hope is to provide encouragement and fun whenever possible. If our lack of clear direction bothers you, we apologize, but no one is making you listen to this podcast, unless you're married to Jennifer. Andy, thanks for listening.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast. We're excited for you to be here today. We're hearing thunder in the background, Justin, so that may be happening more. Of course, I'm pulling down my microphone.
Every time it thunders, I think of that country song.
Which one is that? Oh,
And the thunder rolls.
yes, Garth Brooks.
And a lightning strike. So I sing that a lot when it thunders outside.
That's your thunder song.
The thunder song. Yeah, Jennifer, we're hearing thunder. It's great. Love the rain. I hate that it's coming right when I need to go pick up my children, but that's just kind of
Do you walk? Do you walk to go pick them up?
Okay, so here's the deal. The church offers staff care for our staff, and it's incredible. And they send someone over to walk over and pick up my kids. When it is pouring rain, I do not make these sweet ladies go pick up my children.
That's very kind.
I my kids and bring them to staff care until work is over. So I bring it on myself, but only because I can in good conscience allow these women to traipse up and down just like the flooded streets of West U to get my children. So I'm like, maybe it'll pass in the next 45 minutes. But I have a question for you as a former educator. I posted a video on Instagram and TikTok, but I got way more views on Instagram. Over the past week, I've got a video with 1.3 million views between Instagram and Facebook. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, it's exciting. And the video was my daughter was not doing well on these quizzes she was having at school. And she kind of kept getting bad grades. And we're like,
Which is hard to believe, by the way, if you know Maggie.
Well,
it's
and
a big deal.
we're like, what's the deal? Like, what is this quiz over? Can you study anything? She's like, no, there's nothing to study. We don't have any study sheets, any study guides we can take home. We're like, there's really nothing you need to prepare. She's like, no, we just read this magazine one day and then the next day we take a test on it. And I'm like, you can't bring the magazine home? She's like, no, we can't bring it home. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Is it social studies?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were a few weeks that kept happening.
Oh, Justin.
And we were literally like drafting an email to her teacher because we're trying to trust Maggie, like with, hey, she, it's her life or whatever. But after 3 or 4 weeks in a row of making bad grades on this quiz, we start drafting this email like, hey, and we're kind of talking about it out loud. and Maggie's listening and she's like, oh, well, I mean, we do get to use the magazine on the quiz, but I don't do that because it takes up too much room on my desk. She's like, I just don't like all that stuff on my desk.
This is social studies. I remember teaching this. They have like, it's a throwaway magazine that you get every week of the year for social studies.
Yeah.
You peel it out, pass it out.
Sure.
But I will say to you this, it's hard.
Yeah.
The quiz is pretty hard.
But it's open notes.
It's open notes. It's a lot of reading.
She wasn't even using the notes.
That's
like she wasn't even
hysterical.
attempting because she didn't like the clutter on her desk, which I guess is a personality
I would
trait
have
we
loved
need
to
to
have
talk
seen your
about.
faces like,
It was just
What?
immediate, like, oh, we don't feel bad for you at all anymore. Like, just immediate, because for a while we're like, this can't be right. How's
we're going to send another email.
But we didn't send emails. We never actually sent one because we really held off because we're trying really hard not to be those parents. And that's what the video I made was about. I was like, hey, really, really, really dig with your kids before you get mad at a teacher was the point of the video.
That's
I was like,
very thoughtful video.
I was like, really dig.
Have you gotten flack or people?
No,
agree,
I've
like, they're
just
agreeing with
teachers
you?
came out in droves just praising me and saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. There's some fighting in the comments, not with me, but there's just Instagram, TikTok, I never have fights in my comments. Instagram, I always have fights in my comments. It is wild. And the fight is there's people that are like, well, the teacher should have told her and the teacher should have helped her do this. And the teacher's like, well, there's 25 kids. Like there's this like battle back and forth. And so I want to know as a teacher, did you face parents coming at you about things that were not based in reality, that were only based in what their children had said?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Like oh my goodness, they're never going to get a whole full story. They're never going to get the bigger picture. It's always going to be this minute instance that that's completely different than the reality.
Yeah.
And so you have to explain that, and you have to explain that in a really friendly way with no shade or no sarcasm.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's so nice of you to notice. Thank you for your email.
Yeah.
No, I didn't hit him. I ran into him accidentally and apologized. And he said, you hit me. And I said, did you see that I ran into you? Like, and then the teacher's like, oh, and then the parents like, oh, thanks so much for clearing that up. You know, and as we move forward, I feel like there's less and less trust, right? It's always like, I bet your teachers are there just slinging around a bat.
Right.
Hit one of you. It's like, no, these are trained, lovely professionals.
Well, we're trying not to be that parent. We're trying, and that's why it took us so long to get to the bottom of it, because we really were holding back. Like, we're not going to email the teacher. We're not going to ask about it. But some people in the comments were like, well, you could have just emailed the teacher. And I was like, we're trying not to be those parents. Like, we're trying to trust our second grader more and more. And we're trying to like not be the parents that like always ask about every little thing. And it worked out this time. We waited long enough. We finally got the truth. But that video got a lot of attention from the educators.
And don't you know, when you give it to your kids, and man, I can hear all the, well, this time, the teacher was in the wrong.
Right.
Like being able to talk to your kids and giving them, here's one of the best things we ever did for Olivia is that she had to learn to fight for herself with her, like for her grades. Mm-hmm. She learned to advocate for herself. She learned to text, email teachers, to request, to ask, to push. Yeah. We rarely stepped in, beginning her junior year. We were late. But once they learn that voice, or once you're not going to overreact to them, because what happens is if parents are really fast to react and get onto the teacher, that becomes a power for that child. Right. Like that empowers a kid. Yeah. And so if you're saying, well, let's give them, if you stay on the same page with your teacher as long as possible, that's going to be better for your child in the long run. Yeah.
I will say it's good and bad, the advent of technology in education, because when I was a kid, my mom couldn't just email a teacher. She couldn't just get in the whatever and send a question. So now you really can clear things up pretty quickly. But I still think you should be reserved in that and also not come in hot. And I think some adults, like, they come in hot. They're like already angry. It's like, this isn't anyway.
Well, speaking of coming in hot, we're talking about saunas today. We're talking about men's health. I can't wait for everything that we're going to discuss on the show with our guest. Today is the perfect time to have a guest that's going to help challenge us in the new year, because as we are all stuffing our faces with pumpkin and things for the holidays and already realizing we're going to be 8 pounds up by January, we've thought to bring in someone who's going to talk to us about fitness, about goal setting, about leadership, please welcome Sam Oliver.
Hooray!
Thank you for having me.
He's here.
Thank you for being here, Sam. So, Sam.
First of all, this is a great get. I'm not sure why we've done 126 episodes and Sam has not been on this show yet, because brilliant and super, like a pillar of our church, really. You know what I'm saying? You and your family. So it's just wild to me that we're 126 episodes in. We still have people of this caliber that we haven't spoken to yet.
I didn't even know you knew Sam until he entered the room today.
I do. Not, I mean, we're not like best friends, but I know Sam.
Well, you will be now. Those are nice words.
Yeah,
But
I mean-
yes, you and your family, I mean, just really great people. I'm really glad to be talking to you today. Only person better to be talking to than him would be his wife, but I guess she's too busy.
She can be on the podcast soon.
We will bring Elizabeth.
She's another one.
We can set that up.
She's another one that we're like, we need to talk to her, but like she's always getting a degree or something.
She's
like
medical school.
I need another degree.
So, Sam, thank you so much for being here today. Sam is one of our leaders of our small groups, Family Matters at West 2 Baptist. And so super thankful for the investment they've made in our church. It's a really incredible class. I'm in there.
Yeah.
I don't add a lot. I can't come all the time because I'm working with kids stuff, but it's such a great group of people.
We really do have a well-rounded group.
What's interesting about it is not necessarily aged. Like there's a wide variety of ages.
How it should be aged.
What do you
perhaps.
think about that?
No, I love it. I think bringing in all the different generations. Some of the folks in that class have, 2-year-old kids. Some have 32-year-old kids. And so it's a really nice mesh of Christians coming together, to live life together. It's been fun. We have the Bradys in there and they've got 7 kids, all different ages, and they've seen and experienced life in ways that I think some of us with younger kids haven't. So that expertise in parenting or the failures that they're willing to share really, really drives home some value.
It gives a lot of richness to it. Not only is it's not only just married couples either, it's singles, people who've been divorced, people who've never been married. So I like that even though you're not necessarily in this, quote unquote nuclear normal family, that you still feel accepted and connected within this group, which I think is really powerful for people. So anyway, all that to say, come check us out. It's a pretty fun class.
It's a great group.
But I wanted to talk to Sam today because Sam and I have been talking about healthy living, keeping at a good, healthy weight for over a year now. Like we just stop base, talk with each other, have little discussions. They started out on, I think they gave me some great recipes when you guys did keto for a while, right?
Yeah. I mean, I did keto so that's a story in and of itself. We have 2 kids, and Camille must have been almost 2 years old, and Ian was 6 months, something like that. And I peaked up at like 240 pounds. And I went to the doctor, and I remember him telling me, you got to change something. You're in your low 30s here. You're going to continue to have health issues if you don't address this. Pre-diabetic. He's like, you need to try low carb. And so I dove into that, and for 18 months, I mean, I got down pretty skinny, almost to the point where Elizabeth was like, you need to put on some weight.
I have that problem all the time.
But it was fantastic. And we could talk about this, a little bit more, but it's all about setting those goals. So for me, what is a meal in a day? Well, I've got 3 of them, and I don't necessarily need a snack. And if I can cut carbs, if I can cut sugar, cut bread, if I can cut fruits that are high in carbohydrates, and if I can limit my meals, let's say, to 2 meals instead of 3, well, now I've only got 60 meals that I'm eating in a month. That's really not that many. And so can I be disciplined enough to step into that and just say, okay, starting tomorrow for 30 days, I'm going to challenge myself to eat as few carbs as possible. It's just a starting point. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to take any sugar. And then, month 2 comes along and you're down 10 pounds. And you and I have talked about this. I mean, we shared recipes and the progress is pretty amazing, at least initially. I mean, you can drop quite a bit of weight and you're feeling good about it. And it's like, oh, I'm going to brace this. I'm going to take it to 6 months. Now I'm going to take it to 12.
I think what I think has been really encouraging to me, or kind of cool for me to watch, is that you have widened your scope of health to be so much more than just this diet. Like you've now brought in some other practices and some other holistic approaches, and you've also married it with your spiritual life. And I think that makes you maybe a more healthy whole person, because a lot of times we see people who they can hit the mark physically, they can hit the weight physically, but if you're not looking at this holistically, then you're still not hitting this greater level of health. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it started with a wake-up call, right? The doctor gives you a wake-up call and you're like, wow, okay, I need to change my physical health, the diet. Then, okay, I got to introduce something on the exercise platform. Not that I didn't work out as a kid. I played all kinds of sports. And I think as a kid, your just metabolism's raging. You could eat anything. You could eat 6,000 calories in a day and it just doesn't affect you.
Those are the days.
Yeah. Right.
Well, you're growing, your body's growing. I mean, the calories are going somewhere, like your body is growing.
But we don't necessarily teach young people how to eat right. And then that carries over into adulthood and we're still consuming 4,000 calories. So point being there is you could exercise till the cows come home. 95% of it's what you eat, but exercising every day to really build that robust metabolism, that could be a 20-minute walk. I mean, if you walk 20 minutes a day, you're going to see an increase in your metabolism. It makes a big difference. Like walking the kids to school, just as an example. On top of that, then you talk about, okay, can I introduce, fasting, right? When we think about intermittent fasting and skipping breakfast or skipping dinner or only eating in an 8-hour window. Some people only eat one meal a day, and they'll go eat 4,000 calories in one sitting. I've only challenged myself on some long fasts, some 5-7 day fasts of just water a few times. That's probably more challenging, but progressively taking on the physical, okay. And then from a mental standpoint, we could talk about that as well. Man, I think we have struggles reaching out to others. We're not generally vulnerable. We're taught to be very strong, to just deal with the circumstance of life. And that leads to two things. One, men can become depressed pretty easily, right? I mean, I think we've seen that in our own church community in some instances. And so that hopelessness, can absolutely take hold and rage. And then the other side of that is, well, I have this anxiety. I have anticipatory fear about all that could happen in the world. And, when I think to like Seneca, right? I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me, but Seneca's quoted effectively saying, the man who suffers from anxiety is going to suffer more than the person who actually goes through the event itself. So if I'm sitting there thinking about something all the time, I could suffer more than just experiencing it.
Jennifer, could you share a little bit about who Seneca is for our audience so they know?
It is a philosopher, right?
A Stoic of antiquity.
Me and Jennifer are like, yes, of course, Seneca. Yes.
So, he's not using Seneca.
So I find that interesting, right? If you think about that, practically, well, I don't need to be carrying this anxiety around. Marcus Aurelius was quoted, I have discarded my anxiety, not just escaped it. I mean, literally thrown it away. And how do we do that practically as Christians? Well, we give it to Jesus. When I'm feeling anxious, and we all do, like we all fail at letting go of anxiety at different times in our lives. It's like, do we recall and remember that we have to actually just in the moment go, Jesus got this. I don't need to have fear or anxiety about anything, really.
I do. I wanted to ask a quick question because we really don't talk about this very often. But at what point I see that men are not connecting with other men as easily. I see where men become isolated, disconnected. And they do kind of dive in a little bit at work. They're taking care of their families. But I don't see that with Olivia's guy friends. They're all still best buddies. In college, they're all still best buddies. Where does it happen?
Without a care in the world.
Where does it happen that men lose the connection to other men? Where does that happen?
I think men, you only make, let's say, 5 friends, like real friends your whole life. Some of those you're going to make at a younger age and they're going to carry through. But as you progress, it's just harder and harder to maintain and make new friendships. I think in your 30s as a man, it's really challenging. And I compare that to like my wife or other women at the church as an example, right? Women will plug in very quickly and they will go get coffee together, having just met. Men, it could take 2 to 3 years before we're going on a first fishing trip with our boys, right? It just takes so much longer for, I think, it to become real and to build that brotherhood. Now, why that happens? Men are busy. Men are stressed. We just talked about anxiety and depression, right? Overcoming that. They don't really have an outlet to be vulnerable, and they don't necessarily trust others to be vulnerable or have a space to. And so that's built over time. I think it's really challenging as we age to maintain or develop new, friendships and relationships with other men.
I think also for men, we build friendships by going and doing with people, like not sitting and talking. So it's working on a project, it's on the golf course, whatever, not me. But like it's not sitting at a restaurant talking about our lives. It's talking about our lives while we're doing different things. And so when you lose the time and ability when you have kids to go out and do things with other guys, and all you have is talking, it's a grabbing coffee or a text or whatever. It's just not as fulfilling as when you were living life with each other, which guys in high school are doing on their sports teams and guys in college are doing because they're living in the same house and are hanging out. Like, it's just easier. But once you take us out of an environment where we can build friendships organically, I think it's just too much of a burden to like build one intentionally, which women, I think, are more equipped to do. And that may be wrong, but that's just me personally. That's how I feel.
Those are really good thoughts. I've kind of wondered that.
I also find that I'm too cool for other guys. And so it's just hard.
Everybody's always saying
it's hard. There's like,
if you're, they connect in the industry, right? So if you're kind of in that industry, you can talk, you can go have, hey, let's grab coffee, talk a little business. And so if you're not connected in business so one of the people on our team was talking about her husband went to coffee with this guy. He's like, hey, let's get together coffee. Well, he shows up to coffee and he's like, our businesses don't even connect. I don't even know why we're at coffee. And she goes, well, then why do you think he invited? And he goes, I think he just wants to be friends. Yeah. And it was just like, are we going to be friends?
That's I think a very real and common occurrence. Why does this person? What's the angle?
What are they needing?
What's the angle?
I mean,
here?
I'm sure I have some contact somewhere.
What are they trying to get out of me? No, they actually just want to develop a friendship. And so but I think that's rare among men. There are only a handful that are willing to have that kind of outreach.
And the whole men thing is just don't show this. Don't show that this is a problem. It won't be a problem.
I found myself recently like hanging out with people I actually like making a point to go grab lunch, go grab coffee. And it just felt like so much work to have a conversation. I don't know if it's because I'm exhausted. I don't know if because I don't have but it just
you don't like people.
Felt like
I'm just kidding.
Listen, Jennifer, let's get real. Like, I want those relationships. I had them in college, really meaningful relationships because I lived with these guys and we did life together. But like now when it's all like focused on this one coffee hangout once a month, it's just like so much work in that moment.
To make it all.
One is scripted.
Yeah.
In a way.
It doesn't feel genuine.
When I think about this, we in the United States, let's say the Southern United States, maybe in particular, we get married, we have kids, we have a job, we work long hours. There's plenty of distractions, particularly in Houston, it could be your mobile phone, it could be kids' sports. We're so busy. It's such a rat race. And we don't even have time to take care of ourselves, which we talked about a little bit earlier, right? Physical, mental. We certainly don't have time to take care of other relationships. To really steward that, right? And I think back to, let's say, a few hundred years ago, you and I would have gotten on a boat in Southern England, and we would have sailed the world for 2 years together. And talk about building a brotherhood. We literally would have sailed the oceans blue for years and come home and our kids would have been 2 years older. Yeah. Now, I'm not advocating that we get back to that level of, of adventure, but I do think men lack adventure together is kind of what you're pinpointing.
That's an excellent point, is that men, and there's literally a chemical that is released when men do something hard together or something adventurous together. The chemicals are released and men bond to people through that chemical, but it is through a hard time adventure outside physically grueling.
I'll say for me too, it's a little different because there's like traditional masculinity and there's more and more people who don't fit into that mold. And so like walking into a guy's group or walking into a men's retreat or walking into a men's breakfast, there's a lot of social anxiety that goes along with it because it's not as easy to fit in for some people. Like some people, they're right in, they're great, but there's people like me who walk in and are like, oh, I don't even have anything in common with these people. Like, what do you do all day? I play on the internet. You know, like, what do you do for fun? I make videos on my phone.
Yeah, it's like, I wish I could be on the internet all day.
It's like, what do you do? So for me, I think it's an extra layer. And there's probably more guys like me now who are just, they don't fit that traditional mold of masculinity. And so, especially in the church, which I think sometimes glorifies traditional masculinity, because there is there is a role for masculinity in the church. Like we need men that lead. I agree, but it turns from spiritual masculinity into just like, I like to hunt and kill things masculinity, which is going away a little bit, but like Wild at Heart, which everybody loved by, I think, John Eldredge, people obsessed with the book. I was like, this is the dumbest book I've ever read because I don't want to go hunt. I don't want to kill things. I don't have this desire to conquer. So when the church kind of like sometimes leans more one way than the other, and so for the rest of us, we're like, I don't really know where to fit in on this. Like, anybody want to talk about a board game? Is anybody watching, The Golden Bachelor? Like there's like nowhere, there's nowhere to land.
Watching The Golden Bachelor?
The only thing you can land on is like your faith, which is great. And I love that. That's what the one thing about a church gathering that's different than just a secular guys gathering is you at least have your faith. And once we get into the Bible stuff, I'm like, yes, I'm here. We're all on the same page. But getting to the Bible stuff is hard for me personally.
Well, I'm glad we talked about that. And that's some really great insight. Another thing that you do, Sam, that I find interesting is that you are now doing cold plunges, like where you spend time in ice water. We've talked about this as well. I thought this was ridiculous. When people are having panic attacks, they say to put your face into ice cold water.
And it works.
So tell us about how you got started doing that. And
so I think it really started with saunaing. And I've been getting in the sauna for a long time. I remember my grandfather used to live in San Angelo, Texas. I don't know if you guys have ever had the privilege of going to San Angelo. It's a great town, River City. And he always used to drag me to his men's club, spa, health facility. And he would make me get in the sauna with him. And at the time, I didn't appreciate it at all.
Now, the sauna is the hot room where everybody's just sitting around in a bathrobe.
Hot, dry room in towels, 190 degrees, sweating for 20 minutes. The Finns have been doing it for thousands of years and claim all these health benefits. So it started with that, and then I really just like I was talking earlier, I got 30 days. Can I do 40 minutes a day
in the sauna?
Can I do, and so I keep pushing myself to, up the ante, as it were. I think doing at least 20 minutes per session, 2-3 days a week makes a huge impact, both on your mindset and your physical health. I mean, I stretch in the sauna, and what better place to stretch your muscles than a place that's super hot and your muscles are elastic. But superheating the body is where it started. And it helped calm me down. I'd get out of there and I'd feel like $1 million. And then I take it to the next level. It's like, okay, well, I want to super cool my body. And there's all these papers coming out now about how, cold shock proteins make a huge impact. I don't know. The jury's really still out on that. I do know from an anxiety standpoint, you put yourself in cold water, you can cure that anxiety pretty quick.
True.
But getting in a cold plunge and just sticking with it for 5-6 minutes, and we're talking like freezing cold water.
I've not gotten up to 5 or 6 minutes, and I only do this in my cold shower.
I was about to say, where do you have a cold plunge?
It's in my. I start it warm. I pull it to the coldest thing. And then in the beginning, it's some misery. You're adjusting to it. And then I noticed that about probably a minute and a half in, I start to giggle and laugh hysterically. And then I realized, because what they say, it's like a dopamine hit.
Oh, yeah.
That is very powerful, that stays with you much longer than other hits would be. And I realized that after I got out of the shower, I felt better. I felt good.
And it's sustained. I mean, the cold shock is sustained dopamine hit for a solid 3 to 4 hours, I think, in my experience. And so the cold shower is one thing that's interesting there, an interesting strategy. And you got to start trying this. You're going to like it.
I can't wait to hear
how this goes. You put on Do It Again on Spotify. It's going to run 7.5 minutes and you stand in the cold shower. When the song's over, you get out.
It's a great song.
7.5 minutes in a freezing cold shower. I wouldn't advocate starting in December. It's a little chilly water. Well, if you start in July, it's lukewarm in Houston, and that's okay, and then build up to it. But But it does make a big impact on your day.
Yeah, I like the idea of the sauna sitting and doing nothing. I don't know if I like the idea of the cold shower. But for me also, and I find this with swimming, I think it would also with the sauna, it forces you to get off your phone. You can't take your phone in there. Like I think mentally having extended times with where you literally can't access a distraction that kind of takes over your life is another unseen benefit of all these things.
I had this conversation with a coworker yesterday.
Oh yeah.
There are apparently, and I haven't looked into this, but according to him, and he's almost, I would say Gen Z, early Gen Z. There are retreats that you can go on that are dopamine cleanses.
Oh,
I never heard of this. And you can go on this outdoor trip, no phone, no tech, no nothing. And it's meant to just cleanse you from taking your dopamine hit.
Right.
We're on Instagram videos and anybody can get caught up in that, Twitter or whatever. And you're just scrolling aimlessly.
Yeah.
30 minutes has gone by.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's 30 minutes I could have used with my family, with my kids, in brotherhood with other men. I really could have leveraged it usefully, purposefully. Instead, I was distracted. And I think we're all guilty in some form or fashion.
Everybody's got an app. Like almost like people are like, oh, I'm never on TikTok. It's like, okay, well, you're on ESPN 75 times a day. Like almost everyone has an app that I think they use too often.
Well, what is your Roman circus? Right? I mean, give the people circuses.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they'll be distracted, right? I mean, is it football? Is it basketball?
Sure.
Some people are into sports and they really just cannot, get out of their own way.
Right.
So
They're
this
so
is my
focused
question.
on Texans football,
Yeah.
and some people are focused on baking, and some people, whatever.
So
whatever your
aren't
vice
we
is.
meant in some level for that? Aren't we created to have some kind of focus, some place for our mind to go? Do we have the capacity for that? Is this answering something? It should have been something else, but now it's this because it's been taken away, whether it's with, whether it's with the Industrial Revolution, whether it's with whatever processes have been taken away from us because someone has taken it over, they're monetizing it, they're taking care of it. Like we don't wash our own clothes anymore. We don't have to hunt and gather anymore. We don't have to build things, make things. All of it's done.
We don't have to think.
We don't have to think.
Yeah.
So I feel like there has to be, like we're all running around with this extra space in our brain that we're not using because we don't have a place for our brain to go. It's like not needed. It's really weird to me. But I wanted to say, I think God created us. I think God created us in this place to have constant healing in so many different ways. And it's really cool to know that God made like this cold experience that's really good for us. But now and it probably was part of your regular life at some point, and now it's not. So
I think
now we
the
have
only
put it
way to
back in.
bathe, I guess they would have had hot baths in antiquity, right? But for the commoner, it was the cold river in the middle of December.
And if you think back to as a kid, right? You think back to a kid, your favorite days are that running, jumping, or getting in the pool with your friends. And you don't realize that that's an actual physical experience that helps increase. And those are your memories. It's like, man, didn't we love it when we were in the pool? And you realize, oh, that was an actual physical thing that God created for you to experience joy and happiness. I just think that there's so much about the way he created the earth and humans to experience wonderful and amazing things. And a lot of times
we like our
miss
creature
it.
comforts, right? We don't want to be exposed to discomfort. And I think back to how we were created, to your point. God created us in his image, and the first humans lived a very different life than we do now. They were exposed to the elements. They were exposed to danger in nature. I mean, and today it's like, well, my danger is maybe driving on my way to work, which is dangerous. There's no doubt about it, right? It can be a super dangerous thing. But I don't have lions chasing me.
No, they've really
I don't have to worry
curtailed
about
that.
where I'm, sleeping at night. So that, that aspect I think has been removed. And I do think maybe not all men, but I think a lot of men in a lot of ways long for that.
Oh, sure.
Right. They long for not necessarily being chased by lions, okay, to be fair. But
No,
I think
people.
they long for that sense of adventure and that sense of brotherhood, and that fulfillment isn't there when you're filling that space with whatever your vice is. I think technology truly can become that vice, and it can take away from our walk as Christians with Jesus. I've certainly been guilty of it at times in my life. But how do we stay disciplined? How do we refocus ourselves on all that Jesus has built for us? How do we relinquish control of our lives to him The Bible says submit, right? But I like saying relinquish control for whatever reason. That phrasing makes me feel better about it. But relinquishing control of my fear, my anxiety, my angst to him, every day I wake up and I'm, just like you were saying earlier, Jennifer, I'm excited. Seize the day, step into it. Don't be distracted. Don't find yourself chasing things that don't matter.
Right.
Having anger that doesn't matter. Let that stuff go. You can't serve others, right, until you're really able to serve yourself in a lot of ways. And Jesus gives us, a blueprint to go do that. We have to have him as the king. We have to be able to manage our own, our own front yard, our own backyard of our lives before we can go serve others effectively.
I think that being able to live in the joy of who we are in Christ and to be able to stay present in a redemptive life is one of the biggest keys to help lead others to Christ. I think once we do allow ourselves to get plunged under with the stress, with the overwhelmness, with the fear, specifically the fear, then we're in a state of sin. And now we're living this so-called super Christian life, and we can't be who we're supposed to be in Christ. So therefore, we're always a broken version. We're never perfect. But the fact that we're not living in a redemptive life of who Christ has made us to be is so problematic for other people knowing who Christ,
it's
Jesus
the Christian
is. Does that make
facade,
sense?
right? We put on this mask.
Yes, exactly.
We put on this mask.
Very good way to say it.
And thankfully, I think at our church today, there's not a lot of people that are wearing that mask. I think that's why City Rise is so attractive, truthfully. I've been to other churches. I've been members at other churches, and everything's just perfect. But behind the scenes, things are crashing down. And people are not vulnerable about their sin, about the problems in their lives, the challenges they have. I think we have that amongst men here in the church. People are far more vulnerable. We have pastors step up in front of the entire congregation and tell their life story about how they failed.
Right.
You don't see that elsewhere. I mean, you just don't. They're very real. And so there is no mask. There's nothing to hide. We all have failings. And as men, we need that avenue. We need that community, that brotherhood in church to be able to live with Jesus.
I also love that. And Justin, I'm going to use your quandary as the example. When you say, I don't quite fit the mold, I don't fit this adventurous mold. And a lot of times that's very isolating. And what I've found is that the men who are secure enough in Christ, right? And in general, sometimes people want to control what doesn't look like it should or like they think it should. And so they immediately push it out, push someone out, put them to the side. But the people who are truly secure in Christ will be able to hold on to those people and truly love them and bring them in, connect with them, bond with them, because it takes some bravery. It takes courage to accept and love and speak into someone who feels different, because what you don't want to risk anything. I don't want to risk these friendships if I'm hanging out with people that these people see as not fitting, or I don't want to risk this, and this to behave this way. So I think it takes courage that's found in Christ. So following Christ and being redeemed in Christ is what gives us the power and the strength to reach out to the person who doesn't have the same outlook as we do. And there's a lot of courage in that. I have an example. Andy, to me, is like that. Andy has a lot of courage in Christ. He's not beholden to what people think of him. So Andy doesn't have problems reaching out to those who don't look like him, act like him, or fit any molds. And I think it's incredible to see the ministry he's able to do because he can do that. So I think some of what we're talking about is challenging people to be who they are in Christ with the confidence that you get from being in Christ to make those connections.
I agree 100%. I think part of that, are we living for Jesus, or are we living for ourselves? Are we trying to keep up with the Joneses? Are we narcissistically behaving in how we interact with others? Are we collecting people because they're meaningful to us, and that's the only reason we have friendships and relationships? Or are we real? And we will literally talk to anyone, and we will be open about Jesus to anyone that we meet, and we will be inclusive to anyone that we meet. That's developed. I don't think that's something we all can just arrive at. What I struggle with is seeing people in our community that haven't quite figured out, hey, I have to have this relationship with Jesus. It's going to guide me to be open and inclusive to talk with anyone in this church, just as an example, right? I'm not going to cloister myself because, well, we have different interests. No, you and I can still be friends. And maybe you don't want to go hunting with me.
Or you guys could do the sailing the sea thing. I mean, I think there's a lot of
the adventure.
I've never done it. I may love it.
2-year sailing adventure.
I think you would love the getting to be out.
But I think it's a level of encouragement and hope that we have. I will not give up asking people, hey, would you like to go hunting? I could ask you 100 times. I think some people would go, well, he just clearly doesn't want to go hunting. Eventually you'll say yes. If I ask you enough times, you'd be like, okay.
All right. What are we going to hunt?
And can I be real in that approach and real in that relationship and seek it instead of cloistering myself and backing away and creating my little subgroups? Like if we're here at City Rise and we are all members of this church, we're all working together, living together. I should include folks. I should be that type of man. I should live that type of life.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Man, Sam, we'll have to have you on again. This has been so good. This has been a great conversation. We usually end our conversations with a get to know you question.
Okay.
I'm looking through your paperwork to see if you prepared a get to know you question because
I wasn't given a lot of coaching.
Not a lot of coaching, but he came with a script. Like
I did bring a script
and didn't even end up using it, of course, because he didn't need it.
We used some of it.
He didn't need it.
We did.
It was
we used
great.
some of it.
Actually,
yeah. I think we went down some kind of unique roads that I thought were really powerful. So, and I actually thought this was a good starting point. Or actually a very good fleshed out whole script. Okay. So at the end of our show, we do a get to know you question. It's kind of off the fly. Let's see.
Oh, she's really reaching. She is.
She is so engaged.
She is like.
Normally I get on my
buying
phone.
time. She cannot. She's just praying. Jesus, please send a thought into my brain about a good get to know you question.
This is actually a question I was going to ask today at our City Rise luncheon, which was a great time, but it didn't seem like a good time to bring up. How do you celebrate Christmas with your spouse? Do you guys get presents for each other, or do you just sort of like, we're in this together, this costs a lot, we're not worrying about presents for each other? How do you celebrate Christmas with your spouse? Is that
I heard on the radio someone was talking about how they were like sending their wish list to their spouse, and like they had the links and the colors and the sizes, and I'm like, at a certain point, like why are you what's the point of a gift? Like, and so we don't really do gifts for really birthdays or Christmas between me and Kristen. It's just like, if we want it throughout the year, we're going to buy it. It's just something, and it's probably easier now that we have kids. When the kids are gone, we may go back to like surprising each other presents and stuff like that. But you've got other things to focus on when you're trying to make Christmas happen for your kids. So like we genuinely do not buy presents. We may, help Santa stuff a stocking, but like that's about it.
Well, let me ask you this. If you were to get a gift for her for Christmas, just out of nowhere, you're like, hey, I decided to get you something, would she be like, you dirty rat?
She'd probably feel bad that she didn't get something. Yeah.
It's like kind of an agreement. We're not doing this.
Yeah, at this point, it is an agreement. Yeah.
Well, I can say that I love gift giving. It is like one of my favorite things. But Andy and I have been married for 20 years, and I've successfully gotten him one gift. Everything else goes back. Kind of like why did you choose this? Or what made you decide on this?
Does he give you the look too?
Yes, he gives me the look like.
You're definitely gonna have to use that in the video. Yeah. That look she gave, that was perfect.
What keeps you from not giving up? Like if you're so bad at it, every year, do you genuinely think this is the year? I got it. I got it. Like, why do you keep doing it?
I know there are 3 gift cards I could give Andy at any time he'd be happy with. So you can win.
But it's just passing money back and forth.
But let me just say, here's how a conversation will go. I'll get Andy a t-shirt. And he loves Marvel, Star Wars. Like there's a whole list. And I'll go to a store. I'll go to his favorite store. Like one of his favorite stores are Lunchbox in the mall. I'll get a shirt. I'll give it to him and he'll say, hey, when you were in there, I'm like, yeah. He goes, did you notice the shirt that was right below it? I'm like, yes. Did you think to get that one? And I'm like, no, I didn't think you'd like that one. Yeah, I really like that one. And then it goes back.
Go back in, exchange, get the one that he actually wanted.
At one point he goes, hey, thanks for the errand. He called it an errand.
So why have you not given up yet? Like, why have you not made an agreement? Hey, we're just gonna buy our own presents.
Well, we've kind of moved into that because there's so much, but their presents to me, like he got me a Marvel t-shirt that had, it was Iron Man
Something
on it.
he liked.
Iron Man. Yeah. So,
And did you give him a look?
I was like, oh, thanks for the Iron Man shirt.
So he also isn't good at it. So neither one of you are good at it.
We're not.
So neither one of you are great at it.
Maybe I think he would think he's better at it than I am, but we're not. Neither of us are.
My
great.
struggle there. I was raised. My parents are not very sentimental, and they still loved me. To be fair, okay, but they were not. They were not very sentimental, and so Elizabeth, an only child, was very sentimental. Birthdays are a very big deal. Christmas is a very big deal, and so gift giving matters. The thought matters. And what I found with her is I can't make it an expectation that she's going to get gifts all the time, to be cautious about that. And to be fair, Elizabeth's not that high maintenance. If you're listening, honey, you're not high maintenance. I love you. But she likes those thoughtful gifts throughout the year. So if I'm in the grocery store, I'm cruising through and picking up a few things, I'll grab a thing of flowers. And that could be on like a random Thursday, and I'll just bring those home. For Christmas, she always ends up buying her gift, whatever it may be. Last year, we kind of joke about it. Last year was her turn to get a new car. And so she got that new car in December, and it just coincided with, hey, Merry Christmas. But we try to give each other good gifts. I just don't think that that's as important. Like, I'm not building a list and checking it twice, and neither is she. And we've just arrived at that point where I'm going to give really thoughtful gifts that I think will matter to her throughout the year. And Christmas time, now we have our kids. We're gonna focus on them. And how do we get them into a spirit of giving more than receiving?
Yeah, tell me how you do that. I'd like to hit that transition myself with my 17-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, they don't like it, right?
It's not as fun, but
we're coaching them, and they certainly
that's good.
Are coming around to the idea of giving to other family members in particular. I think is a lot easier. That's where we really started and honed in, and the kids are just like, oh, I can get grandpa this thing. How much does that cost? I have 68 cents. And I'm like, well, it's going to cost more than 68 cents. But, yeah, definitely can do that. Right. And so then they're really engaged and really, loving it.
That's great. That's a great answer. I was curious about that. So that was really cool. Man, Sam, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been such a great time. And Justin, will you tell us a little bit more about how to find the show in the middle of the show?
Sure.
Oh, wait. Sam wanted to talk to us about the men's leadership.
Oh, wait.
Okay. Okay. Sam, tell us about that. You guys are kind of starting this whole new thing for leadership.
So we're launching a series. It's going to be led by Robbie and by Roger. And the dates aren't set yet, but it's going to be called Men of Vision. And it's going to be a series getting men together to talk through all these different issues. How to be a better leader in your household, how to take care of yourself, how to build brotherhood. And so, be on the lookout for that. We're going to kick it off here.
And the goal is 45-year-old men and younger?
It is 45-year-old guys and under. The thought process there being, hey, this is the future of the church. These are the leaders of the homes and the members of our church. And so how do we help cultivate those guys to be the best men, best leaders, best fathers, best husbands they can be?
Fantastic.
Best followers of Jesus.
Yeah, if you want more information about that, reach out to your campus pastor. It's probably the best way to get plugged into that, as they're making an email list and things like that. So if you want to get involved in that, chat with your campus pastor and he'll connect you to the right person. But thank you for joining us today. If you were encouraged by this episode, please send it to somebody. Rate, review, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, like it. It's so free and so easy.
Come on.
We are continuing to talk to incredible people, and we're hoping to finish the year out strong and then start again in 2024. So if you got people you think we should talk to, please
email us at podcast@cityrise.org.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you've had an almost amazing time on the Almost Amazing Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Almost Amazing Podcast from the City Rise Network, based in Houston, Texas. City Rise is a partnership of church campuses, nonprofits, and missionaries devoted to lifting our city and the world by generously giving the gospel of Jesus Christ. For more information or to find a church campus close to you in the Houston area, visit cityrise.org.